Okay, 7-3 offsuit in the big blind. Stone Turner with a min raise. Alright. Some people will call there for just the min raise, but 7-3 offsuit is so trashy that perfect fold. Alright, so there's a limp under the gun. You're getting 5-1 pot odds. I think you're deep enough to, call along here. Hope to hit a big flop and win a big pot. It's cheap enough, and you have enough chips behind to do it. That was on the tip of my tongue to say, but be careful for the guy behind you who has a shove stack who may go all in. Now you have to fold. That's as good a time as any to mention that when you were deciding whether or not to play your hand, always consider the possible action behind you. And in this spot, you can see that Senses Tingle had a 9 big blind stack, and that's a perfect size to, if he sees no strength ahead of him, to just shove all in and hope that these two players fold. Bonkosaurus limped under the gun. He showed no strength. You just completed from the small blind. That's not showing any strength. So he can go all in. There's 450 chips in the pot. That represents about a third of a stack. Anytime you can go all in and pick up a third of your stack, increase your stack by 33%, that's a wonderful opportunity, and he takes advantage of it, and you give away half a big blind. So watch behind you, watch the stack sizes behind you, consider how many people are behind you when you're deciding the play you're about to make. Now here, as I said before, big stack 24J has been raising a lot. You should be looking for spots to re-raise him. I'm not saying that King 5 offsuit is a good hand to do it with, but I'm not saying it's a bad hand to do it with. You could make that kind of play with any two cards, really, because he is raising so many hands, especially from late position as he is here, that he will not have a hand good enough to call your re-raise with. Somebody who's only raising, say, 5% of hands, you don't want to make that move against. But someone who's raising 25% of hands, he's trying to pick up all the small pots. You look for spots to re-raise him with non-premium hands and pick up the pot pre-flop. That's called light 3-betting, or just 3-betting. When there's a raiser who's opening a lot of pots and it's in late position and you're just behind him and you've noticed that he's a tendency to raise a lot of pots, you should start looking for spots where you don't have a big hand, but you can re-raise him, and hopefully he will fold all the trash that he's raising with. But folding is fine. You might be able to find a better spot, but in a turbo tournament like this, there may not be that many opportunities. So start looking for opportunities to re-raise guys like that. Ace-4 offsuit, I wouldn't mind a raise here. I know that there's a 11 big blind stack and a 7 big blind stack, but Ace-4 offsuit in the cutoff is, an ace in the cutoff in a turbo tournament like this. That's good enough to raise for me, but you decide to fold. I don't mind the conservative approach, but you need to start looking for more spots to raise and pick up the pots pre-flop. Queen 5 is not one of them. Hope you don't fold Ace King again. And I also hope you don't do that. Yeah, I've already said all I'm going to say about this kind of move, although I think it's going to work out in your favor. Yeah. Well, all the money was going in there anyway. It didn't necessarily matter how you played it. It is good to point out that you shouldn't be limping in with Ace King and hoping to hit your aces, which is what you're trying to do. Get in there and raise. Know that if someone behind you re-raises and you only have 18 big blinds, you're going with your Ace King. You're getting all the money in. Ace King is too strong to fold pre-flop, and it's too strong to limp pre-flop. So get in there and start raising with your bigger hands, please. We see a free flop with Queen Deuce, and we let the guy bet, and we have to fold. Oh, so here is a perfect spot to re-raise big stack. You have an ace, he's raising the button. People raise the button with all sorts of hands, and especially an aggressive player like this is going to be raising the button with all sorts of hands. So ace deuce is certainly ahead of the range of hands he's raising with, but you let him get away with it. That's the see. Here's a good compare and contrast to the way you've been playing. You've been limping in with all your big hands and folding kind of medium strength hands and not showing any aggression pre-flop. You see how hard it is to play against a guy who's raising frequently. He's not raising a lot. He only raised to 500 there. That's 2.5 times the big blind. But most of the time, if you noticed, he's been raising, or when there was a limper, he was making it 3 times the big blind. He's not putting a lot of his stack in the middle, but he's frequently raising and picking up all these small pots. He could have had a hand as bad as 7-6 suited, or Jack 3. He's raising a lot of hands here. Your ace deuce is probably a better hand than what he has. So you got to start re-attacking these guys. You got to start pushing back at them, or else he's just going to raise, and pick up all the small pots, and he'll run away with the tournament. Queen 6 would be a good chance to raise there, but you showed weakness and just limped in. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to hit a flush draw and maybe win a big pot, but you can also take a page out of this player's book and start min-raising and picking up all the small pots, and you'll see your stack start to grow slowly but surely. And now he bets, and there's nothing you can do because you missed a flop. I guarantee big stack's gonna raise. He does, and you have to fold. See? You got to start fighting back against guys like that. When you know he's raising at every opportunity, you have to find a hand, even if it's a marginal hand, and attack him. Force him to stop raising. Good players are able to find those spots that don't look like they're good spots, but in reality they are. Alright, ace 3, you're going to fold here, and kings versus kings. Well, that was interesting. Again, big stack with the 2x raise, and he just wins another pot. See? Chips go, watch these chips go right to a stack. They go right to a stack. They go right to a stack. And if he keeps doing that, his stack is going to slowly but surely grow, and he's never going to have to gamble. He's never going to have to take a coin flip. He's just going to slowly grow a stack. That's the essence of small ball. If you haven't heard of small ball, maybe I can find a link and put it in the comment section of the video. But it's a great way to grow your stack slowly, never put yourself at risk, and dominate the table. It's hard to play against. You can see how hard it is to play against a player who's constantly raising. Oh boy, here we go. Now here's the first real spot. I hope you re-raise him here. Now you fold. Well, that's exactly what his constant raising strategy is hoping for. He's making you wait for a super premium hand before you play back at him. Against a player like this, Ace Jack is actually a super premium hand. It may not feel like it. You may be waiting for Ace Queen or Ace King or even Kings or Aces, but against all the hands that he's raising with, Ace Jack, you have to go to war with Ace Jack versus a player like this. That was a bad fold, in my opinion. Now, he may have Ace Queen in that spot. And if you re-raise him and he goes all in and you call, well, sometimes he's going to have a big hand. That's the benefit of playing that kind of style. But you can't let him run over the table, and you can't be folding hands as strong as Ace Jack offsuit to a player who's just raising. Alright, do 7. Alright, pocket jacks. I hope we don't limp here. Oh no, we limped. Okay. Alright, well, at least you bet. Alright, I feel like a broken record saying it, but stop limping with your big hands. Pocket jacks is a big hand. Don't be scared to put a little more chips in the middle pre-flop. In the long run, it'll be to your benefit. Stop trying to hope that you hit a big flop. I mean, I guess you did hit a big flop here, open-ended straight draw. But start raising pre-flop and picking up all those pots. Don't let the blinds get in there for free or for cheap and outflop you. Pocket jacks is surely a strong enough hand to raise with. I have a hunch that you're trying to utilize a limp re-raise strategy, which you used on that ace-king hand when you ran into pocket queens. I guess that's fine in certain situations, but in general, it's a bad strategy. And here's why. When you're limping and re-raising, when someone raises behind you, you're creating too big of a pot. You're creating too much variance, as they say, and variance is the opposite. Utilizing variance is the opposite strategy of what Big Stack is doing. Big Stack is playing a lot of small pots. He's not gambling. He's just picking up little pot after little pot after little pot. When you do what you did with the ace-king hand, you're basically hoping that the one time you get all your money in, you win the flip. You happen to win the flip that one time against the pocket queens, but it's hoping that luck is on your side the one time you get all the money in, instead of finding spots to win pots with little bets and raking in little bits of chips here and there and slowly growing your stack. So if that's your strategy to find spots to limp re-raise, I would take that move out of your game. It's not a winning strategy for the reasons I've already outlined. Alright, so we have a re-raise from the aggressive player and then a call from under the gun and under the gun +1. And you call with Jack-10 offsuit in the big blind. You're getting 6.5 to 1. You're not too deep in neither of these guys, but I think in this spot, I don't mind calling along and seeing a cheap flop. If it was just this player, I may argue for folding because there'd be a less in the middle to fight for. But when this guy calls, your pot odds got a lot better and the price was fairly cheap, so I don't mind calling here. You check, we get a bet, and we have a gut shot, and we're going to fold. Yep. You see what he gets by raising a little bit pre-flop and then making a small bet on the flop? He made you fold 2 overcards and a gut shot. I'm not saying you should have called there, but it's hard to hit a flop, and he's betting hoping that the two of you didn't hit your flop, and a lot of the time you won't. Alright, here's 10-6. I think you're gonna limp. No, my bad. There's some action ahead. Now here I wouldn't limp. Yeah, well, even though you're getting a great pot odds, 10-6 offsuit has really no value, and you're just giving chips away. Yeah. But here, Queen Jack, Jack 9, and the big stack got even bigger. Don't want to see that. It's giving him more ammunition to make his little raises with. We want to be the one who's making those little raises. Alright. Discipline fold with the 5-high. Oh, don't limp. Oh, okay. Perfect. Do this more often. Exactly what I've been hoping to do. You got slapped down for it, and I think you have to make the fold here. But yeah, the idea of, I like that you raised, that you took the initiative, that you made it a bin raise. It was just bad timing, and sometimes that's going to happen, you know. Just because sometimes you'll get shoved on and have to fold, don't be scared to start opening more pots. Offsuit, ace 3. Yeah, and this is a situation where if he had raised from here and you had ace 3 offsuit, I'd go all in. Because he raised under the gun and he had the whole table behind him, you can't necessarily assume he has he has a wide range of hands, and I like the fold of ace 3 here, because the situation was different than when he was on the button and you were in the big blind, or he was on the small blind, you were the big blind. Now he's on the other side of you, and he's raising from under the gun. Alright, there's an all-in, and we have to fold up, an all-in and a call. We fold our ace-deuce, because ace-king. Okay, next hand is jack-6 offsuit. It's folded to us on the button. Now normally, in this situation, you would look at your hand, you would see it's jack-6 offsuit. Your experience tells you, well, that is a horrible hand, I'm going to fold. This may blow your mind a little bit, but this is actually a very profitable spot to go all in a tournament. And I'm going to do some quick and dirty math to show you just why it is a great spot to go all in. Some people are scared of poker math. Most people are scared of math in general. To that I would say this: practice doing math that you don't like. Get used to doing math. Get better at doing kind of poker math. It's not terribly complex math at the beginning. It doesn't have to be terribly complex, but you're going to have to learn how to do some of these math calculations in order to find spots that are profitable for you. So to do that math, we need two things. This little spreadsheet that I've made up. This is not, you're not beholden to this format. This is just, one of the ways that I do it. I kind of just drew this up in a minute, and I think it worked well for what we need here. And the other thing you're going to need is a equity calculator. Poker Tracker has an equity calculator built in. There are spots to input your hands. I'll show you how all this stuff works in a second. So these are the two tools we're going to be using. So the first thing I'm going to do is make an assumption, and that is this: if we go all in, big stack 24J is going to fold. I'm making that assumption just to make the calculations simpler to start with. It can be a lot more complex when we have to figure out, is this guy going to call, is this guy going to fold, is this guy going to call, is this guy going to fold, are they both going to call, are they both going to fold? Don't worry about any of that yet. Let's just assume, for the sake of simplicity, that big stack 24J folds, and we have to consider whether or not loose goose is going to call us. So we decide to take our 7 big blinds and go all in. What do we think about loose goose 2999? What kind of player is he? Does he call a lot? Does he fold a lot? We have to consider that, and that's using our reads in the player and our HUD, which I'm not going to go into too deeply yet. But we're going to have to figure out what kind of hands he's going to call our all-in with. And that's where we go to the equity calculator. We input Jack of Diamonds. Sorry. Over here. Where was it? Okay, so these are all the hands that one can play in Hold'em. You can see down the middle, diagonally, are our pairs, starting from ace-ace to deuce-deuce. Over here, we have all of our suited hands, ace-king suited, ace-queen suited, 10-7 suited, all the way down to 3-deuce suited. And under the pairs, we have all our offsuit hands, ace-king offsuit, ace-9 offsuit, 10-5 offsuit, all the way down to 3-deuce offsuit. So we're going to start with finding the hand that we have right now, which was jack-6 offsuit. And now we have to figure out, what will loose goose call us with? Well, it's easy enough to say, yeah, he's going to call us with all those for sure. And he'll probably call us with that, and maybe that, and he'll call us with all these. You can, pinpoint exactly the range he's going to call you with. Yeah, maybe he'll call us with this hand, and he'll call us with that hand. Will he call us with this hand? No, I don't think so. An easier way to do that is to use this sliding bar. And you can see it starts with ace-ace and king-king. And just experiment with sliding it left and right to see the hands. It includes more hands as the hands get weaker and weaker. So the larger the range, the more hands down here that he's calling with. Let's try and figure out what he's going to call us with. Let's say something along the lines of, that looks fairly reasonable to start with. It may be a bit wider, it may be a bit tighter, but let's start. This looks pretty good so far. You know, maybe we added some of these in, but for the sake of simplicity, we're going to start with this. As you can see, this represents 21.12% of all Hold'em starting hands. So we're going to take that number, 21.12%, and plug it in to our call field, 21.12%. And what that means is, how many hands is he going to fold? Well, we take 21.12%, subtract it from 100%, and we get 79%, which represents, you know, the unmarked range here. And we're going to start with the hands, the situations in which he calls, right? So what we've done is we've input our hand and a range of hands with which he will call. Now, what does this mean? Sometimes we have Jack 6 offsuit, and he's going to call us with, you know, King Jack offsuit, as it shows here. Now this King Jack offsuit plus represents offsuit kings with a kicker better than Jack. So King Jack offsuit, King Queen offsuit. This represents suited kings with a kicker better than 10. So King 10 suited, King Jack suited, and King Queen suited. It doesn't show every single hand, it just kind of shows what the range is represented by this denotation, if that makes clear. And this shows pairs, pocket threes or better. So let's say we go all in with Jack 6 offsuit and he calls us with King Jack. Well, that's a bad situation. We are up against a hand that dominates us. You know, we both have jacks, but he's a better kicker. What if we go all in with Jack 6 offsuit and he calls us with pocket threes? Well, that's a coin flip. You know, we have two overcards versus his pair. So you can see that there's one good situation and one really bad situation. What we want to do is figure out how our hand does against all the hands represented in this range over a large enough sample size. So what you do is, when you press calculate, the calculator will run millions and millions of simulations. It'll run our hand against all-in situations for all the hands represented here, and it'll see how it does against that overall range. So press calculate, you can see it does it in, less than a second, and our hand will win 31.82% of the time against this range when he calls our all-in. So we take that 31.82% and we enter it here, 31.82%. Now it's asking us for the size of the pot. So when we go all in and we're called, how big will the pot be? Well, we can start with, there's already 880 chips in the middle. That represents the big blind, the small blind, and the amount of the antes, and actually it shows us that up here. Then we add in the size of our stack, 2765, and we add in how much he has to call, which is our stack minus what he already has in with the big blind. 2765 minus 400. So when we go all in and are called by one player, the pot size will be 6,010 chips. We will win that hand, that pot, as we just figured out, 31.82% of the time. So 31.82% times 6,010 chips is equal to 1,912 chips. What does that mean? That means if we go all in and are called, on average, when the hand is over, we will have a stack of 1,912 chips. Because that's apparent, because we're going to lose the pot 70% of the time and only win it about 30% of the time. So our stack of 1912 will be less than what our current stack is, which is not a good situation, right? But that only takes into consideration all the times when we are called. There's another situation, all the times when we go all in and everybody folds. How profitable, how many chips will we win if in the situations where we go all in and everybody folds? Well, first, we don't have to do this calculation, because we know what our winning percentage is. It's 100%. We go all in, everybody folds, we win 100% of the time. We still have to calculate the pot size, and it's going to be different than this because we're not getting called. So we have a pot size of 880 already in the middle, plus our stack. So when we go all in and everybody folds, our stack will increase from 2765 to 3645. But we're not done yet. We have to figure out how this situation and this situation add up to an overall big picture. How do we do that? First of all, up here we figured out how often each situation happens. The times we are called happens 21% of the time, and when we are called we win 1912 chips. Then we add the times we get folds 79% of the time, which we multiplied by 3645 chips, which gives us an expected value of 3279 chips, EV expected value. And what does that mean? That means in situations where we go all in and we're called, or everybody folds, given the assumptions that we've made up here, we will end the hand with an average of 3279 chips. And you can see 3279 chips minus our current stack, it shows an increase of 514 chips. Because it's an increase of 514 chips and not a loss of chips, that means that going all in here is a profitable play. It looks weird to see that Jack 6 offsuit and know that going all in is better than folding. But the numbers don't lie. Now, there's an additional wrinkle in tournament poker that I'm not going to go through yet. Maybe that will be, for sure that will be something we'll talk about another time. But just so you know, to look for situations that don't look like they are spots to go all in, sometimes they actually are. You can see that going all in with Jack 6 offsuit would increase our stack on average by 514 times. Sometimes, you know, we'll go broke, sometimes we'll double up, but on average we will increase our stack by this many chips. In the real world situation, EasyDoesIt folds and her stack stays the same, it doesn't increase. Now he's 4 suited. Oh, well, now that there's a raise in front of us, we can still consider it. If we know anything about Mr. Gruesome, if we think he's a crazy aggressive player in spots like these, we may call with ace 4 suited. But I don't mind you folding in spots like this. Just like going all in with substandard hands, sometimes in a turbo tournament you're going to have to call with substandard hands. And here we have a suited ace against an aggressive player who's going all in with 8 big blinds, 2 off the button. Again, just like the last hand, maybe in a future video I'll go in and do some, it's not hardcore math, but at least it's a bit more complex math than you might be used to, as to why calling with ace 4 suited might be a good play here. Turns out you would have lost, but you know, can't always win. 10-3 offsuit under the gun to fold. Ace 2. Okay. You're calling any shove, I hope. And that's an interesting wrinkle. You can't just call here, and if I remember correctly from watching this before, you do. Yeah, you just call. You can't call off, if you have 7 big blinds, you can't just call off one of those big blinds and hope to, I don't know, hit a flop or make a play. You're certainly not deep enough to do any of that. If you think that your hand is good enough to play here, I would go all in, and hopefully either maybe he folds, that's not out of the realm of possibility, or maybe you get lucky and hit a flush or something, or maybe he's, you know, has king queen and he'll call you and you're ahead. But you can't leak off a big blind in a situation like this when you only have 7 of them to start the hand. because when you miss the flop, he takes a bet, you got a fold there. Alright, next hand, King 3 offsuit. It's folded to us in small blind. And just like the situation with Jack 6 offsuit, it looks like we have been given a terrible hand and we're just going to make an automatic fold without thinking about it. What I'd like you to do is use the tools that I showed you in the Jack 6 hand, our Excel spreadsheet to figure out our expected value, and the equity calculator that you found, and on your own figure out if King 3 offsuit is a good spot to go all in with here. If you want, show your work, show your calculations, and leave a comment in the comment section of the video below, and we can talk about what your assumptions are and if you're doing the calculations correctly or not. But I think it's beneficial to you to go through the calculation on your own now, because that's an important part of tournament poker, is finding situations after the fact. You can't do these kind of calculations while you're playing it. It takes too long, as you already saw. What you have to do is go into your hand histories after the fact and find spots like this and do your math and figure out, oh well, I guess I missed a spot to go all in there. I guess I missed a profitable spot to go all in there. So yeah, do figure out this situation on your own. I'm not gonna. I have my ideas, but I'm not gonna tell you what they are right now. And figure out if this was a profitable spot for Easy Does It to go all in. In the real world, she folds and gives Big Stack another pot. Alright. King 10 offsuit, we would have gone all in against the 2 blinds, and this may even be a good spot to call against Eyes of Shiva. In fact, I think I would call here against an aggressive player. I think King 10 offsuit is a perfectly good enough hand to call, especially when you only have 3 big blinds. You are slowly bleeding away chips, and you can't do that. Queen 6 offsuit, well, here's a hand you can probably fold, and you do. King Queen offsuit. Oh, well, I happen to know that this is the last hand of the tournament, so I know, spoiler alert, you shove all in, and then perfectly fine. You should have done this a lot earlier. The problem you've run into now is, as you see, there's one, we got these people to fold. We have a good hand, but we've given Eyes of Shiva ridiculously good pot odds, 2.81 to 1, as you can see here, to call with pretty much anything she may have here. And the reason she can do that is she only has to win 26% of the time, which is pretty easy to do in Nolan Hold'em. She only has to win 26% of the time in order for this to be a good pot odds call. So she does make the call, and you can see she called you with a pretty terrible hand, but it beat your King Queen, and that's nobody's fault but your own. You need to start looking for more spots where you are going all in before you hit a premium hand. The Jack 6 offsuit spot was a perfectly good spot to go all in with. The King 3 offsuit spot was a perfectly good spot. There weren't that many spots before that, other than, say, attacking Big Stack 24J's raises. There was a hand where he raised and you had Ace-3, and you could have gone all in there. There certainly was the Ace-Jack hand, which was a clear mistake in my mind. So that's the thing you should start looking for, is more spots to go all in and steal the blinds from late position with pretty much any 2 cards. The other problem that we noticed was you need to be more aggressive pre-flop, and I'm not saying raise more as in raise 3 times the big blind or raise 4 times the big blind. I'm saying raise more often. When you watch this video over again, watch how often Big Stack 24J comes in for a min raise. It was a crazy amount of times, and watch how many times he had to show down the hands he was raising with. That is a great example of the power of small ball, the power of making a lot of teeny tiny little raises and picking up small pots over and over again to build your big stack, to build your stack. As you can see, as it stands now, he is, well, 3rd in chips, but essentially tied for the chip lead between these three players, right? And he didn't do that by winning coin flips. He didn't do that by making huge bluffs like the one you made right off the bat with the ace queen. He did that by min-raising and picking up a small pot, min-raising and picking up a small pot, min-raising, getting a caller and betting the flop and picking up a slightly bigger pot, min-raising, 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 picking up pot after pot after pot. I think that's a great example that you can start to follow. Start raising more often with a lot more of your hands. You were given a lot of great hands in this tournament, but you failed to raise with them. If that's the one thing I think you should take away, is start raising a lot more pre-flop. If you're not comfortable with the 3x raise, or even 2.5x, do a min raise. The other benefit of min raising is you will see a lot more flops, and you will start to get better at reading the flop and knowing which flops are good to bet on. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say right now. Thank you to EasyDoesItDD for letting me go over her hand history. If DD or anybody else has any questions, leave them in the comment section of other video, and I will try and get back to you with specific and or helpful answers. So until next time, this is Michael Stone. Thank you for watching, and hope you learned something.